First, we're going to talk about slope-intercept form equation. And this is the equation y equals mx plus b. Every letter in this equation represents something. The y and the x are variables, and they are the value of x and y on the graph. Remember last week we talked about graphing and how we always go to the x-axis first and then the y-axis. That's what this represents. M is the slope of the line. If we had a line that went through like this would be M, or the slope of the line. B is the y-intercept, or where the line crosses the y-axis. Let's say this is 1 and this is 2. So the y-intercept would be 2 because that's where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, let's look at the equation y equals 2x plus 1. You'll notice that I took these values and substituted them in this equation. So I have the slope, which is m, substituted with a 2, and the y-intercept, or b, is substituted with a 1. The 1 is a constant, so it's always the value will always stay the same. The 2 has a variable, so its value is dependent on whatever this x happens to be worth. If the value of x is 10, it would be 2 times 10, which would be 20. If the value of x is 5, it would be 2 times 5, which would be 10. So we're going to start a table over here so that we can eventually graph this equation here. So we're going to start with the value -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And remember, we always start with x and then we finish with y. And what I'm going to do is just plug these values into the equation. This is also called an input and output table because we'll input these numbers into the equation, and then the answer, or the output, will be the y value. So we're going to start with this -2 and start with our equation y equals 2x plus 1. That's our original equation. We're going to plug this -2 in where the x is. So y equals 2 times -2 plus 1. Y equals 2 times -2 is a -4 plus 1. So y is going to equal -4 plus 1 will be a -3. So I'm going to put -3 over here. And I will continue down. Let's go with the -1. Start with our original equation. Y equals 2x plus 1. Y equals 2, and I'm going to replace this variable with this -1 plus 1. Y equals 2 times -1 is -2 plus 1. So y is going to equal -2 plus 1, or a -2 and a positive 1 will give me a -1. So I'm going to put that over here in my table. Now it's your turn. Pause the video and see if you can complete the table. Now it's time to move our information to a graph. I took our table and wrote it exactly the way we figured it over here and made a graph. So we're going to take these numbers, and these are just ordered pairs. Each of these are just sets of ordered pairs to graph. So we're going to start with a -2, -3. So we start at the x-axis, go to -2, and then go down to -3. Now let's look at the next set of ordered pairs. Just -1, -1. I go to my x-axis. Here's -1, and I'll go down 1 to -1. I went ahead and graphed the remaining 3 sets of ordered pairs from the table. I used a ruler and connected all of these ordered pairs on our graph here. And this line would go on forever, both ways, and it will show each one of the ordered pairs in this set. If we went to the x-axis here and we had a -3, we should be able to plug that into our original equation and come up with a -5. So let's see if that works. We have y equals 2x plus 1, and I'm going to go to the x-axis, and I have a -3, so I'm going to substitute this and see if it works. Y equals 2 times -3 plus 1. Y equals 2 times -3 is -6 plus 1. So y equals -6, and a +1 is a -5. So let's see if that's where the y is. So we have a -3 here, and it matches right here at -5 on our y-axis. Perfect.